Hello, I'm Charlotte. I'm doing a video series called Who is Jesus? I would like to encourage women by taking them on a biblical journey of encouragement and find out who Jesus is. If you do not know Jesus and have just found this because you put it in a search with the question, who is Jesus? You're at the right place. I would suggest, if this is the first video that you found, to go back to part one. I'm putting this all together in a playlist to make it easier, but that you will be able to know what all has been said up until now. Also, if you do not have a Bible, I would highly recommend that you get one. I am using the King James Version, and that is the version that I trust for accuracy. And of course, you can also download a Bible app onto your phone if you would like to do that. However, you can get a hold of God's Word, the Bible, please get it. So we're at part 6 of Who is Jesus? And Jesus is now getting very famous among the people. I mean, who would not want to come and see and hear someone who heals them of sickness and diseases? And they really want to hear what he has to say too. It's not just about what he did for them. They really want to hear his message. And so we're going to take time to look at Matthew, the book of Matthew. If you have a Bible, you have a table of contents at the front, and you can find out what page Matthew begins on. And we're going to chapter 5. And I'm going to read the first 12 verses out loud to you. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you, falsely, for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. So, as I have said before, these people had heard messages from God before because there were prophets, or Moses, the leader of the people, many hundreds of years before Jesus was alive. He also had written down things that God had said for the people to know. But everything that they were hearing when they would go to the worship services that they had in their synagogues or in the temple, um, we call everything what they heard now, we call it the Old Testament. At that time, it wasn't organized into a book like we have, but they had the writings all separately, and we've put that into what we call the Old Testament. And if we think about what is going on in the Old Testament, there's a lot to do with the external, as in obeying rules and regulations, having laws and commandments. There were a lot of prophecies that the people heard where God was clearly expressing his displeasure because his people had turned away from him and had found other gods and religions that they began to practice. And there's also a lot that shows God's heart, that he really loves these people and he wants them to come to him. He doesn't want them to be separated from him. So Jesus, as he comes and begins to preach, he's preaching a message that they have never heard before, because he is coming to establish the kingdom of heaven now. This is the kingdom that they've been longing for. And he is the one who accurately represents God, the Father, the King of the people Israel. And he is speaking, Jesus is speaking on God's behalf. He is speaking about what God has in store for everyone who will believe that Jesus is his chosen, the Messiah, Christ, the anointed one, that will open the way for them to enter into the kingdom of heaven. So for Jesus to preach this message of blessing, they are hearing for the first time that God sees their hearts that long for him and his ways and his kingdom. And Jesus is giving them a promise that God is going to fulfill the desires of their hearts. So let's take a look now, reading verses 13 to 16. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on an hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So now that people are starting to get his message, Jesus is also showing them that they have a responsibility. They have a role to play in continuing to live and share his message with everyone around them. You know, God had chosen the people of Israel thousands of years before for them to be a visible witness of who he is. If you go and you read in the Old Testament, for example, when the children of Israel had been captive and slaves to the Egyptians, but God brought them out of Egypt in a miraculous way with a lot of display of his power and his majesty and these things. People had never seen anything like it. And they knew who that God of Israel was. He was using them to tell other people about him. There could have been other people who came and said, I want to follow your God. I believe he is the one that is the true God. So the children of Israel at that time were to be that representation of him visibly, physically in the earth. And when people could see all that he had done for them, they would know, wow, they got all of that from their God. Their life is like this because they believe in that God. And that could draw other people into a relationship with God. Israel was the example. And so now they're not slaves in Egypt anymore. They are in their home country, but they've had no close relationship to God. And so here Jesus is saying, you know, this is what God sees in your hearts. This is what he wants to do for you. And if you believe that, you should tell other people about it because they need to hear it, or they might ask you about it because they'll see the difference. You know, if people are getting healed, somebody's going to say, weren't you just like with a broken leg yesterday? What happened? And they're able to tell about what Jesus has done and tell about what the kingdom of heaven is like. And so that's going to continue happening for more than 2,000 years. Jesus Christ lived over 2,000 years ago, and people today are still sharing the message of Jesus Christ with people around them. So let's find out a little bit more, reading verses 17 to 20. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, One jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So, the people had heard about God from the law that he gave them during the time of Moses and all the prophets that he had sent to his people with messages, with warnings, calling them back to him. It would make us think that now the kingdom of heaven that Jesus is speaking about and demonstrating is going to make what the prophets said null and void. It seems like it's replacing. Well, we want to know that Jesus came to fulfill or complete the law. The law wasn't the whole plan that God had for his people. It was to get them on their way to really seeking him for who he is and not just obeying a list of commandments. It puts things in the wrong order, because then we think, or they thought, they have to do to please God. And any true relationship where people love each other can show us the example. When we love someone, we want to do things for them. We want to do things that please them. We don't want to do it to get them to love us, but it just naturally flows out of us because we love them. And Jesus is showing us this principle of living in his love, and then we want to please God because of his love. But God's laws are also an assurance that a society will function fairly and in an orderly fashion if everybody obeys these laws. So it's clear to see that when people ignore, disobey, or get rid of his laws, that a society cannot function in a healthy way anymore. So for the rest of the chapter, he teaches the people that what everything really boils down to is the attitude that you have in your heart, and being people who represent the love and goodness and kindness of God the Father, just as Jesus did, because they know the love and goodness and kindness of God the Father. They believe it, they know it, they trust it, and so that's going to come out of the hearts of people to share with other people. So thank you again for joining me, and I hope to see you in part 7.